So I don't have audio yet. Can you say something just to make sure I can hear you?
I, I can hear you.
Okay, cool. I got you now. It said it was still connecting to
Okay.
audio. So, are
No,
you wanting to be on your phone or do you want to take the time to do this on your laptop so that it's easier for you, or which do you prefer?
um, I usually just go on my phone, but is it, okay. I emptied out a lot of my house of furniture that just clutters me to pieces
Hmm.
yesterday. And like we have this little farmhouse, and the organization is like one of these a big obstacle for me,
Me too.
because what we have, right, we have one living room and uh, a main bedroom and a spare room and a little office space, and here's me doing crafting, music, and writing, and there's nowhere to put everything, so um it's constantly being reorganized, but I got totes of books. And this is another thing. um if I could just figure out how to write one book, then there's so many, like, I have an idea for this book, so I bought a bunch of research material, and then this book the same thing, and this book the same thing. So my living room is full of shelves with books and totes of books. And I would be, if I could, this is a really great first step. And just figuring out, I emptied a good amount from the main bedroom that could actually be a writing room, because in the winter this place is chilly, and I don't think anyone wants to write with their nose dripping. So, right. So it would be a lot more comfortable to write in a smaller room. And I don't know about your house, but when these small farmhouses, the bedrooms are small, so they're easily heated, and
Hmm.
everything else is big and open. And so if you know, the rest of the house can be quite chilly, but you can keep a room warm.
Hmm.
So I mean, this it's just the whole mess scene that I got going, which I did a lot yesterday to empty out enough 3 rooms that I could have a decent space in them. But I mean, moving out couches and desks and out to the garage, so I've got some space. It's been a real a real challenge. Um, but okay, and then there's the other thing. This is, I take a notebook, and I'm I write, say I'm reading, say, KM Weiland's book, and while I'm reading it, I'm saying or writing down ideas, like, for characters in a novel that would um fit her directions. So then I've got notebooks after notebooks, and they're probably not all even all full, but they're intermixed with the notes that I had about a how-to book, and mixed with my ideas for a novel. So, and notebook after notebook of these. So it's like, um where do you start? And if I knew how to do the process right, I wouldn't end I don't think, or at least I'd hope, that I wouldn't end up with stacks and piles and totes of all these notebooks.
Yeah, but that's part of your creative process. There's nothing wrong with that. You just need to have a tote that's set aside for ideas, and then you put it away, and then you work on your one project. And if you have another idea while you're projecting, working on this one project, then you can write it down on a Post-it note or in a book or whatever, and then, set it aside so that you can capture the idea and it doesn't interrupt your flow of the project that you're working on.
Right. And so I've got a lot of backtracking to do to go. I mean, don't you think, I guess, the easiest place to start is to start going through the notebooks and separating, what you the how-to book, and write and type out what, because sometimes I've actually written a piece of a scene, you
Mhm.
know
For which
they're
book?
just
Just any book or the Looning?
that's a problem. I'm like, I have tons of these, notebook after notebook, um and so I would have to, they're probably more concentrated in, say, maybe under 10 notebooks, you know um so I would have to, and mostly I have kept them collected um in a certain tote bag. um it's just a real mess to clean up.
Yeah. So, oh, yeah, that's a tough one. So you can I see two options for you. And this is the same question that I ask myself when I start feeling a little bit spirally because my environment is distracting me. So I either stop everything and make my environment workable, whether, if that means just not working on any projects other than reorganizing my office and making it like cleaning off my desk so I know where all my pens are, and creating that tote with just the ideas, and getting all of your notes for the Looning together, and just setting up your environment so that it's workable. That's one option. Another option is to not let that become resistance for starting the book, because I hear a lot of creative chaos going on in your head, which I totally recognize because I do the same thing. And so sometimes I have to just rein it in and say, and kind of be firm with myself and say, no, like this is just shiny object syndrome. This is just me being distracted. I need to just do this one small action step towards working on my book. And in that case, it
So
would be, I think today I was hoping that we would finish the outline that we started last time and maybe even start working on some scene cards. That was my part of my agenda, but I'm
okay,
happy to
no,
do whatever.
um well,
If you honestly
uh
think, if you really look inside and think that this isn't just a distraction, that you really, before you can start working on this book, you really have to get your space in order, then I can help you come up with a task list on how to do that, if that's useful. I just want to be
uh,
useful as a book coach for you, so that because you're paying me.
right, okay, yeah, okay, so um that has just been my challenge, and feeling like super drowning in all the material that I have.
Hmm.
um and and so I'm feeling really good about getting a house in order. Okay, so but we can certainly go through, because like I said last time, I have the big picture.
Hmm.
And the last time, I started having um, a lot of ideas that I guess they would, it's more than just big picture. Um, and so number one, okay, having a task list, that would be helpful for me.
Okay.
Um, and
Regarding what?
and okay, a task let the goals that I need to set up so that I know what my next task is. And
Mhm.
I can make that list. Okay. Um and then okay, so what say there's a couple of partial scenes. Okay, but they're not typed out. So everything that I do have should be typed out, I guess. Although I can't tell you because I've never written a whole scene before,
Mhm.
um, that it would be a partial scene
Mhm.
in in that chapter. Um, I started writing, and I didn't know again if this would be like a flashback. Um, but in my main character's background, they had, and this is um okay, so what happens is she goes camping with her family and her uncle and aunt and cousin. And the cousin, so Erica and her brother are probably 7 and 9, something like that. And the cousin was supposed to watch them down at the creek while they collected crawdads. And she had her headphones and leaned up against a tree and she went to sleep. And then they kept walking and walking and walking down the creek. And then the older brother, when they'd been walking, at least an hour or something like this, he says he knows a way that they can get back in a shortcut. Well, they actually get lost, and they end up going up a a hill, and there's boulders, and there's a bear cave up there, and they have a really close call, but she kind of, I picture her standing in front of this bear and screaming, and her brother falls off these boulders, and both of them get like lifelong disabilities from that encounter. But her that because I was thinking about what would be the fatal flaw, and is it that she got some kind of disability that she was self-conscious about, um, or something, a disability that would make it more of a challenge to not only go through life, but what she will have to overcome when they go to the wilderness. That was, one of the things that I mulled over. Um, but um, I pictured her kind of having a bear totem, and a totem animal, was that bear. And she's going to have to confront another one in the wilderness. And, you know, um, which would, it would kind of go full circle, right? That the first encounter didn't end up so well. But the second time she will have she's going to have to take care of it, and I'm like, it was just an idea that I was mulling over.
Mhm.
So, um okay, so we can certainly talk about, do you think, I mean, when you know the big picture, and you know um everything, well, most things that need to happen,
Mhm.
you know is that at the point where you start creating scene cards?
Yes.
Okay.
Do you have, what do you write in? Do you have Scrivener? Do you have Word, Google Docs? What do you write in?
Um, Whatever's on my computer, maybe Microsoft
Microsoft Word?
Word.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Um, do you have any interest in getting a different like writing software, or do you want to just stick with Word for now?
Um,
I don't want it to be a
well,
barrier to you starting.
right. Um, so KM Wyland, I think, she's a big believer in Scrivener.
Mm-hmm.
And I've sat in on a couple of like webinars,
Mm-hmm.
and I was I was interested in doing something like that. But I am not a techie. And then, I'll be uh, the Scrivener Facebook group or something will come up and somebody says they just lost everything and they don't know how to get it back. You know what? And I'm like, that is one of the reasons why every time I would write something and I had it typed out, I would print it off so I have a hard copy of it. And of course, now this is greatly contributing to the volume of things that I have that are sitting in totes.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a positive, I would imagine, to as long as you can be sure that you're not going to lose things that you wrote.
You just
Do
have to
so
back it
when
up.
you
You can email it to yourself. You can put it in Dropbox. You can put it on an external hard drive. You could do all of those things.
um like those little hard, what are they called? They're like this big,
Oh, that's a flash drive. Yeah, you could put it on a
a
flash
flash.
drive. Mm-hmm.
Um,
Or a thumb drive.
what
Sometimes
do you,
people call it a thumb drive.
um, what is it that you do?
Not enough. I don't do any of it. I just save it on Scrivener. It's just there on Scrivener. Um,
Have you ever had a bad experience?
no. Mm-mm. But
And so,
I
what do
I
you like?
should I should email myself the document or something like that, and I've got it I've been writing this particular manuscript multiple, over the course of a long time. And so I will email it to myself occasionally, so I at least have the last version, if something were to happen to the current version, at least I would have an older version somewhere that I could work from again.
Right?
And
And I think
the last time while I was, I did print it out. Part of my process is after I'm done writing the whole thing, I will then print it out I'll take it to like FedEx or something like that, or a UPS copy store or something like that. And I'll print off the whole manuscript. So I got a big stack of papers. They send it to me in a box, and so then I'll go through that. Um, so I have, actually I recycled that just recently because I was done with it. But throughout the process of you writing, you will end up having multiple versions of it in different places.
right. But you don't print anything out until that very end.
Mm-hmm. Correct.
So you're pretty confident that nothing will get lost. And I'm like, I have no confidence whatsoever in a computer. And I guess part of that is because I know very little about computers, and I would have to get help from someone if something like that happened. And so, next thing you say everything is gone and I can't find it, and I'm like, that is definitely, I have read those experiences, so um
Well, you're going to be emailing me your scenes as you write them so that I can analyze them. That's part of the book
right,
coaching. So that's a fail safe right there. So even if your
right.
computer fried one day and it just blew up, or you drove over it in your car or something like that, like if you lost your computer somehow, then I would still have a collection of your scenes. And then you can also,
So
what I would do if I were you? this will just give you 2 layers of, or even 3 layers of confidence. If you're going to write in Word, you're going to, whenever you email me your scene, also copy yourself. So you're going to be emailing yourself your own work. And that's going to be in whatever email, like, I don't know if you use Gmail or what, but you'll have it then, on your computer, or not. It's not on your computer, it's with your email server. So even if you got a new computer tomorrow, you would still log into your email provider or whatever, and you would have a copy of all of your scenes. So there's one easy way to do it. Just CC yourself whenever you email me. And then you can get a thumb drive from Kinko's or Staples or, any place, probably Fred Meyer, any place will have those little thumb drives. And you can just, put that in your computer, and when you're done writing, you can save it to that as well. So that's another, you can just stick that in your purse or whatever, just have it someplace. That was 1, 2, what was the third one I was thinking of? Oh, that's a little more complicated, but you can sign up for a free Dropbox account and you can just save it to that as well. And that's like in the cloud, it's a web-based, you can upload it, or excuse me, you can log into it anywhere. And
Right.
it's just like a folder in the interweb universe that you can
Right.
access and just pull it out. So those are all ways that you can give yourself some serenity, just be more confident that it won't be lost. And if you don't do
Right.
any of the, like, all of those require setting something up or going in the store and buying something, unless you just email yourself. That's an easy way to do it. And
Right.
even if you're not sending it to me, maybe you write, maybe you sit down and you write 5 chapters one day because you're just so, wow, I got this story in it. You can just email that to yourself.
Okay. Um,
And then I would just, if you don't want it to be in your email inbox, you can create a little folder in your mail program and just drag it over to the folder that says manuscript or something like that, or the Looning, you know.
right. Um, so, uh, in the contract, how often is it? Every week you need 20 pages, or is that every 2 weeks?
Every week you can send me pages up to 20. It doesn't have to be 20. I just don't think that I could manage more than 20 a week with, my other client work
Right.
and stuff. But, some
Right.
people a
So,
chapter is 10 pages, some people a chapter is 5 pages. So it just sort of depends on, whatever you get done in a sitting.
right.
And it can be a
Um,
partial, just whatever you have, just send it to me, and I'm not going to be editing it. I'm just going to be looking at it to see, like, what is it that this scene needs to make it a good scene? Does it have enough dialogue in it? Does
right.
it have enough? Yeah, it's just the pieces of story, or pieces of scene rather. Does it have all the
I
bits?
have right. I definitely understand what you mean. It was like it's been several years ago now, but we would meet. There's a I don't know if they're still really active now, but they used to meet at the Veneta Library.
Hmm.
And um, there was one lady there, Christy Corbett. Do you know who she is? Um, she had a Western and she has had things published. Um, and so I turned in some pages to her and she was like looking through them. And I was totally off on like um pers point of view
Hmm.
and things that a character wouldn't know this, or um I'm like, well, that was it was tricky to keep the point of view right. And you like maybe you're mixing it. Well, this this might be first person or third person or omniscient. You can't, but you have to choose one and stay
Right.
with it. So,
Hmm.
so I'm hoping that I would be better at that this time. Um, and especially, I mean, my characters, the first part, would you say that um your first say, okay, the ordinary life
Hmm.
before the inciting incident and they go to the wilderness, would I be shooting for like 50 pages?
That totally, it's a percentage of the pages that you have. So if you have, it's 25% is kind of the first act, but the inciting incident usually shows up somewhere in the first 10 to 15%, I think.
Inside.
I just heard that on a podcast. I can't remember if it was. So I think because this is your, let me just start by saying that there is no one right way to do this. There's no one right way to write a book. There's no one right way to do an outline or not do an outline or anything. So all of the books that you're reading, and anything I tell you, these are just ideas that work for us, and you can kind of glean what's going to work. And it's going to be trial and error for the next like 3 years. Okay. So you're just going to figure out your process over however many books you write. You know what I mean? So try to be an explorer and not be so I mean, don't get discouraged because you can't figure out what your process is. It's going to happen. You're going to
Oh,
figure out your process. You will. It's just going to be trial and error. So what I what I think is, how do I say this without being
you can
I-
say, you know what, just I'm not I'm really flexible. I'm not easily offended. You can just say whatever you want to say,
all right.
and it's
Okay.
all it's all good. You don't have to be diplomatic. That's what I'm
Okay,
saying.
cool. Cool. I like that about you. That's the way I am too. Um, yeah, I'm a proponent of nonviolent communication, but I also like to say how it is. So first time writers often get stuck in the weeds, and a lot of resistance comes up with, how do I do this the right way? And if I can just write this one book, then I'll figure it out the rest of the way. And yeah, to some extent that's true, but that means actually just writing and starting. So I think that it would be useful to you as a first time writer to learn some of the because I'm scattered, because I jump around and have lots of ideas, and because I like to research and plan and all this, I do tend to distract myself. So what works for me is to have an outline and to write out the scene cards so that when I come to the page, I know that in this scene, I'm writing about blank, blank, blank. It's not going to be an empty page. I know what I'm sitting down to do that day. And anything that distracts me, I can go back and say, nope, this is what I'm writing. That's not to say that I can't take a detour, and explore this other idea while I'm writing. A lot of great things come out of that. And an outline is just a map. You can take a detour and get back on track later if you want, but it's just something, because some people write outlines and then just deviate completely from the very beginning. But the act of writing out the outline or writing up the scene cards or whatever is a kind of discipline that gets your head in the game and gets you focused. It's just a focusing tool. So
Uh,
I would suggest that you do that, and we can work on how to do that together, and then you can do some
with
on your own.
right scene. Okay, now work on what together. Like, are
The
can
scene
you repeat
cards.
what?
Yeah, I
Okay,
want to finish
scene.
I want to
Yes.
make sure that the outline is done and that you can start setting up some scene cards. So scene cards,
Okay.
if you want to, you can do it really analog. You sound like you're kind of an analog person. So you can get out index cards and write it on that if you want, and then like tape them to your wall and as you're working if you want. I mean, at some point you're going to have to type up stuff so that you can email it to me, but if it helps your process to like have it written out by hand at first, then that's fine.
Um, okay, so a scene card is just your like your point of view person, and would you say it's only a paragraph or
Not even.
something like
Sometimes it's
this?
just a little phrase. It's just a placeholder that says, in this scene, um, Erica is gonna be late to work. Whatever, like it's just a placeholder so that you kind of it's a breadcrumb that will lead you through the book. For instance, we
Uh,
started looking at so I know that Erica's in her 30s. She's a social worker and she started this Mother Bethel program, helping people
yep,
take ideas and create products so that they can pull themselves out of poverty. And I
yeah,
know that she wants to prevent her son from being arrested, and she does that by hiding him. I know that she really needs to develop deep empathy and to let go of her controlling nature and her distrust. I know that Chava is an antagonist and that ratted her out to the yuppies who told the police. Nature becomes an antagonist later. Mental illness is definitely all the way going through that. And that Erica's flaw is the need to control everything. She can't trust anyone because she's afraid they'll take her son away. And ultimately, really, her flaw is that she's got superficial empathy for others that are not like her. And
right.
her
Uh,
allies are Harriet Tubman and is it Anif? Anui?
Anna,
Anif?
Anna Fanui.
Anui. Okay.
Uh-huh.
And we talked last time about the theme being empathy. And did you look into that story hypothesis resource that I gave you?
No.
Okay, so that just will help you solidify your thematic statement. And that's a cool thing to just like have on a post-it note and stick on your laptop, or just on your screen. So you have kind of this idea that you kind of keep in the back of your head as you're writing.
Okay,
Uh,
so your your theme statement, uh it's because there's a lack of empathy, this this happens. So it's like there would be two parts to a theme.
the
It
theme,
isn't just a
sorry, it isn't,
it isn't
I'm listening to you.
um okay. No, you go ahead.
No, I wanted to hear what you were
You
saying
know,
about that it isn't just a
okay,
what?
yeah, it isn't it isn't this is a story about um people having a lack of empathy, but you would have to continue that thought to or complete that thought that the lack of empathy creates a society that's no better than the animal world. You know, some you know what I mean? So
Yeah, I'm trying to put
to
that into a statement. Um, the moment that things turn around for her is when she hears the ghosts, and then she has that deep empathy for her son. She's like, "Oh, now, I mean, he hears voices, I hear voices. Like, what's the difference, really?" And
right,
that's when she develops deep empathy and understanding, and that is when she finally can truly protect her son, which is what she wanted all along. So the thematic statement, I think, is the moment Erica develops deep empathy and understanding is when she can finally truly protect her son. So that means if that's kind of your overarching statement for the whole book, then at the beginning of the book, When she's not showing deep empathy and she's not understanding, she's not protecting her son. And that's when he, gets in trouble and the police are after him and blah blah blah. And then as you get closer to the middle of the book, she's starting to maybe develop some of these, not that she's developing deeper empathy, but maybe she's recognizing that the empathy she has is only superficial. And so she's doing some things that are helping her son a little bit better as she's learning that about herself. So that ultimately at the end of the book, when she has the deep empathy, that's when she can save her son from suicide and really protect him and get him, the help that he needs. So having a
Right.
good thematic statement helps you write the book, because you just do the opposite of the statement at the beginning of the book and then prove the statement by the end of the book.
Right. Because then that there's that character arc and you
Mm-hmm.
feel like you have gone through that journey.
Yeah.
And okay, so um we so when okay, so the beginning of the book, and she works in the Looning district, and um they have like it's a couple of blocks, and it's just like in Star Wars, they have the bar, and they have like a theater that people like, they have, live plays,
Mm-hmm.
live performances, and it's a real meeting place for people. And she's got a really great set of friends, um, and uh, so she'll have her boyfriend. She's got her office and her work, and Danny, who actually does love her, and he works in her office. And there's a whole thing about caves that are going on. I picture, in the Looning district, there is stairways that go down into like under the streets where a lot of homeless people are living. She'll never be able to go down there because of her cave experience. But at the end, when there's actually money that has, a campaign that was actually called in 100, because 1 in 100 people in the United States have schizophrenia.
Oh, okay.
And it's a campaign that her district had been working on in with the legislature. And in the end, the people that are living in this subterranean world are going to be able to come up and actually go to group homes. So um there was, a little a bit of arc that's happening. uh so when I guess you would start at the beginning, right? If you're writing scene cards, and you want to paint a picture of the Looning district, but you're uh, underneath the actions that are going on. You are showing that she doesn't have deep empathy. And I mean, there's a lot of ways that could come out with her clients.
Okay. So
um
what is your email address? I'm just going to email you something really quick.
Valerie dot Maltais 2K17 at Gmail.
Okay. All right. So I just emailed, still doing it right now. Email this file. Okay. So what I've emailed you is it's something called the 3-story method worksheet. And I think I think that you'll really like it. You have the book, the 3-story method, right?
I've got the book,
Okay.
I've got the workbook,
Okay.
and
Well, it's
and
in the
I
workbook
I have,
then.
okay,
And you have
it's
what?
it's in the, and I bought his three structure. maybe it's the book that he mentions in the book that I got in the first
Okay.
couple pages.
Yeah, the foundations of fiction. Okay. So the in the first couple pages of the workbook, there is this worksheet. It's talking about the Pixar pitch, the log line, but what I wanted to get to was the act 1, 2, 3 um
Oh, I know. I
conflict
see
and
what you're
stuff.
saying. I did download and print off those sheets that you sent me.
Okay.
Is that's what you were talking about?
I think so, yeah. So okay, so what I want to do with our remaining 15 minutes is come up with the beginnings of your this worksheet. So the act 1 conflict, that's the beginning. So the thing that brings um the thing that the thing that throws her out is Craig stabs her, right? That's the global conflict and also the act 1 conflict. Act 1 conflict. Craig stabs Erica. Okay, then also in act 1, we have to have act 1 choice. So in that same act, the beginning of the book, there has to be a really huge decision. Well, not huge, but there has to be a decision that Erica makes. And is that the decision to, let's see where we are. The notes get stabbed and she decides to hide it, maybe. I don't know where
Yes,
that is. Does that happen like
she
right
does.
away? Or does that like,
Um,
or does she,
it would have to. It probably maybe halfway through, because then she does hide it.
halfway through what?
Halfway between the beginning and the inciting. Hold on a sec. No, yes, the between it happens halfway between the beginning and the inciting incidents where she gets told on and she has to leave.
Well, the inciting incident is being stabbed. The conflict is the
For
inciting incident.
oh, um, okay, the way I was looking at it
Mm-hmm.
is that everything would have been just fine if Chava didn't say nothing. But once she gets told on and the police are called, that's when she doesn't have a choice but to leave.
Okay, so her choice in Act 1 is to run to run with her son. Okay, so she runs to the wilderness. Runs to
And
wilderness with Craig to hide him from the police. So the global conflict is Craig stabs Erica. Then there is a scene where Chava tells police or tells I guess tells the yuppies and the yuppies tell the police or something like that. Tells
yeah,
the
yes, actually,
Okay, so Chava tells the yuppies. I'm not sure what that means. I think that's something to do with yeah, okay, but you know what that means. So Chava tells the
yes,
yuppies, and then there's a scene where the yuppies tell police, or that doesn't have, I mean, that can be the same scene. I don't know. I'm just sort of writing notes down and you would have to decide like what comes in the scene. And so then the act 1 choice is to go into the wilderness. And then the act 1 consequence is um now she's got to figure out how to keep her and herself and her son safe. She's
and,
alone,
and
alone
so
in the wilderness, alone in the wilderness. Is she in the house yet?
um
Is that where
okay,
she,
you know how um what happens is, okay, her friend Danny is an urban explorer.
Mhm.
um I like watching those. they go to abandoned places. I watched that on YouTube.
Mm-hmm.
So he he had brought all these maps over to her house, and um, the night that she has to leave, she just gathered them all up and left. So she picks one out. It's the last one that Danny would have thought. So I'm like, he believes that she went to one of those places, but he has no idea where.
Mm-hmm.
And the one place that he would never have gone is the place that she did go, and that's why it took him so long to find her.
Okay. So we've got the global conflict, Act One conflict is Craig stabs Erica. Somewhere in there, Chava tells the yuppies tell the police, Danny shows Erica the maps. I don't know in which order that goes in, but I'm just writing out these statements. And then the Act One choice is to run to the wilderness with Craig to hide him from the police. And the Act One consequence is now she's alone in the wilderness in this house with Craig, and she's got to figure out how to stay safe. Now that catapults you into Act Two. So the Act Two conflict, often, it doesn't have to, but often the consequence of one act or one scene or one chapter is kind of the conflict of the next scene or chapter or act. You know what I mean? Sometimes they're different, but sometimes they are.
So
So the consequence of being in the
this
wilderness
is
with,
so in other words, no, that was really important what you just said,
Mhm,
because this is how you go from scene to scene, and it's
exactly.
because that to put that in a sentence, it's the consequence of the last choice.
Yes, that creates the conflict for the next scene or chapter or act.
Of,
Not always, but often, and especially in like thriller or adventure or fast moving, fast paced stories, often it just like dominoes, into the next and the next and the next. Sometimes there is a nice place where okay, now we're dealing with the consequence of this, and then as they're dealing with it, something else kicks off, and that's actually the conflict, not the it's so sometimes it's completely different things, but sometimes it can be the same.
right.
So
and
what is
and,
the
and some
go ahead.
so sometimes I can shoot back to what's happening in the Looning district, or what's happening uh, with Danny, um, or sometimes to take just a break from the chaos and the hardships. They could have a nice relaxing situation where they're fed, they're all and actually happy. And I don't know, maybe you would use that as herself realizing things or something. So but that's really helpful. The consequence of the last choice can create, I guess it's the
Mm-hmm.
conflict
Mm-hmm.
in the next scene.
Mm-hmm.
And this is like, that is like really important, like the Marshall Plan. I was reading that book and thought, okay, they're going to tell me the secret. And then there was no secret.
Okay, so when she is in the wilderness, she's in the house now with Craig, like, and then the first night they're all what is the next like obstacle that she runs into? What is
Oh,
the
um,
conflict of the next act? Now the Act Two is like 50% of the book. That's big. So Act One is like first 25% of the book. Act Two is the 50% in the middle, and Act Three is the last 25%. So think of like the shape of the novel. So this big in the middle, Act Two.
okay. So I had this idea about, uh, Chava rats her out, and she actually um, has a love scene with Danny, and she goes to the wilderness pregnant.
Right. Yeah.
you know, so I'm like, now she's got to deal with survival. She has to deal with uh
But she wouldn't
with
know that she was pregnant right away. So that would have to
not
have
not right
come
away.
earlier.
Right. Because when I mapped out how many months it would take for me to get through the wilderness section, I'm
Hmm.
thinking a year.
Okay. So the act two choice, then, let's see, there's going to be act two conflict. There's going to be a midpoint in there somewhere. Then there's going to be the act two choice and then act two consequence. So the choice,
Okay.
so maybe the midpoint is when she finds out she's pregnant.
No, you know what? I was thinking that um, she has a crisis with Craig, and he tries to kill her, and like I think her hair, like she gets it all stuck in the sap in the tree, and then she's like got it all cut off, and it's like sticking up everywhere, and the only thing now that she can wear is Harriet Tubman's uh the dress that she had on the mannequin. So I was thinking that, so this is really high stake, right? So she knows what he's really capable of this, and now she is so desperate that now she has tried to get into this room where Anif is actually in. It's like double bricked, and she's going through every kind of tool that she possibly can, and she is going to pound and pound and dig until she gets into this room, and that's where all of the secrets of the whole property are, because he has journals and journals, and he's like kept a library in there.
So what does that have to do with Craig killing her, trying to kill her? Does that happen after, or is she trying to get
It
into the wall
No,
because she's trying to get away from Craig, or?
no, it's that it's the most intense emotional situation that she could possibly be in, and maybe she dinked around with trying to get through these bricks, but at this point, you know it's just like when my son went to jail. um I was doing things that were actually like busy work because my anxiety was so high. Her
Mm-hmm.
anxiety will be so high that she will do anything that she has to get into this room, even though it might not be directly helping her help him, but it is an outlet for a crazy amount of intense emotion.
So the midpoint is her getting through the walls then. Where does Craig try to kill her? Is that the act two conflict? Does that happen when they
um
first get
I
to the house?
it 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 wouldn't it wouldn't be exactly then. I mean, they'll have to be there for a little bit before that happens. um
But that could be
so
the act two conflict though.
right.
Okay.
Absolutely, that's what it should be.
Okay. And then the midpoint is getting is revealing the secrets of the property. And then
Yes, then yes.
what is the choice for what is the act two choice is going to be what catapults you basically into act three. Um, arguably, it could, hmm, it's a little bit too soon to have like the global choice. I think the global choice ultimately should be in act three, just to make the end of the book interesting for the reader. If the end of the book is just
Well,
like a
yes.
giant
Well,
epilogue, then it's not very
the
interesting.
right, but I think that if she goes into this pregnant, that could be the crisis, have actually having a baby in the wilderness.
The act two consequence is she going to have the baby before Brody, Danny, whatever, and Erica save
Uh,
Craig from
yeah,
suicide?
Yes. So I believe that the act three conflict is her having a baby.
Act 3 conflict. Oops. Giving birth. And act 3 consequence is saving Craig from suicide
Yes.
at risk of herself and her newborn. Saving Craig from suicide, risking herself and newborn. So the act 2 choice and consequence still need to figure out. So I have another appointment right now, so I can't linger
Okay.
anymore.
Okay.
I will finish
Okay.
typing up these notes and get you the video for today's session emailed to you tonight. Your homework is going to be to fill out this 3-story method worksheet. So basically you're going to fill in what we just discussed, the act 1, 2, and 3 C's. And I've got some of them written down, so you'll have them tonight. So
And
finish
and
that.
I've been also taking notes this whole time.
Okay, cool. So yeah, I would like to see that finished, and that's going to be basically your outline. That's your overview, really. And then you can just slide in other
The details.
scenes. Yeah, the details. So I would definitely, you don't need to like fill out the character sheets really if you don't want to, but I would just come up with the 3 C's for the story and for each of the 3 acts. And then I would like for you to type up the stuff that you have to send to me Monday by 5, or you could just write that first scene in the book if you like to start at the beginning. But if you feel like that's too much or too much pressure, then you can just type up the scenes that you already have. Okay?
Okay. If I
Okay.
have any questions, I can email you.
Of course. Yes, absolutely.
Okay. This
All
is
right.
awesome.
Oh, good. I'm
Thank
excited.
you.
So I'll get your
Yes,
email
so am
Monday
I.
by 5 p.m., please.
Okay.
Okay.
That's my first deadline.
Bye-bye.
Bye bye.